So the next topic is a very, very interesting one, and one that desire to be grasping what is the meaning of life. To tell you the truth, this is not an modern only question, but is a question of every human being that lived on this earth almost from the beginning. What is the essence? What is the meaning of life? Is it just a desire? And how we can grasp this kind of, I would say, internal or more secret meaning of that kind of desire. But as a question, it's a typical question that has been asked by hundreds of philosophers, of authors, of poets, of people with a certain intellectual ability and capacity. They try to identify what makes sense in this life. What is the meaning of this life? What are we in for? And of course, in the modern environment, that kind of question is asked in a different way, but is the same thing. Especially when we arrive at the very difficult decisions of life or death. In other words, what is the meaning of life? If I don't find any kind of meaning of life, can I take my life myself? Or can I take somebody else's life? So how do we address this type of questions? First of all, to realize that behind that question, there is a secret. How are we supposed to approach it? How do we supposed to find out meaning? Is there really a meaning to live for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, 100 maximum, and then die? And then perhaps leave something behind. Most of the time, nothing. Is it enough to consider it that that kind of life, if he ends up there, does have a meaning? I will tend to believe that if your answer to this type of question is that there is nothing beyond death, then we are really condemned. But we are really condemned when really we do not find any kind of proper answer to that type of question, which means at the end that we don't find any meaning on that type of question. The contemporary life is full of these negative reactions towards the meaning of life. There is one thing to say, to have a doubt about my belief or my unbelief. It's one thing to have a doubt, and it is another thing to have a certainty of the non-existence of a meaning of life. So, what is the emphasis? The emphasis to address this type of question, which is typical and common, and as I said, it's probably from the historical point of view, it's very well known, but in every generation we put the question in a different, perhaps, way. And we need, or we try to understand if there is different answers to that kind of question. And one of the big difficulties is that people, they try to give answers to this type of questions without consulting the sources and the texts. In other words, without considering the tradition at all. And if you don't consider the tradition, you are very, very further away from the truth. On these kind of typical questions, just to give you a simple example, we have an entire history of the ancient Greek philosophy who dealt with these kind of topics and subjects. Different philosophers, different schools, they express themselves in one way or another. And then, of course, we know that that kind of experience has been transformed through Christianism. In other words, after Christ, now with the new era, then we have a combination of these type of questions with a different understanding. Why? Because now we are based on the particular events who started with the incarnation and finished with the resurrection. Which means that at the end, all these kind of questions has to be re-studied and re-evaluated according to the new circumstances and to the new ideas. And part of this are the Christian ideas that has been, projected into that kind of life. So, we are living in the 21st century, which means that, our experience is very different. Somehow, we have to be able to consult that kind of experience, which is the traditional experience of all that kind of civilization from the antiquity till now, and then having all that as a text, as a material, as a experience, as a tradition, to be able to express ourselves in a modern way. And into that extent, my contribution is to say that for some of us, that the Orthodox tradition plays a very important role, is the best known secret. Being the best kept secret means that needs not to be copied, but needs to be discovered. That's why it's a secret. You have to have a desire to look for it, to search for it, to agonize about, even in an Orthodox understanding, to pray about, if you want that kind of revelation to come into fruition in your life. That's why the comprehension at the end of the meaning of life is a part of a discovery. It's a part of, really find out all the armory that is needed for you to have all this kind of argumentation and at the same time context and experience into that. It's absolutely important that the best kept secret is not given from parent to kid, but is given normally, is passed basically from the one to the other, most of the times in a community way. If a community functions as properly supposed to function, then that kind of transfer happens in a natural and normal way without a lot of emphasis into the procedures. It's passing because it's based on something which is fundamental for the Orthodox understanding, which is the understanding of the free will. In other words, if that what makes us to be closer to God, to be adopted sons of God, is that kind of image that we have of God in us. That kind of image that in the community that we live, or in the communities that we live, this kind of transfer to the experience can be passed when the community is alive, when the community is in the proper understanding that each particular person has his own free will that is given to him by God. And that kind of free will is not taken away by nobody, even by God. He's not allowed to take it from us, because it's his face on us. And we don't want to go away from that. So the fathers of the church, especially the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th century, they debate a lot of the questions of the free will and the understanding of the free will, because they felt so important, that kind of topic. And in a society that lives as a community, not as a community of the old ancient world, Athenian world, or whatever world would say half of them are slaves and half of them are free. No. In the new society that has been created in the Christian understanding, that there is no free or slave, there is no Greek or Jew, there is no rich or poor, etc., etc. But everything is based on the deeper understanding of the free will, that it gives sense to the community, and the possibility of transfer in that community that exists, the tradition, the passing of the baton from the one to the other, the life alive in a community like that, which at the end is the meaning of life. Then in that kind of sense, if you live and you develop in that kind of community, no matter if you are rich or poor, if you are Greek or Roman or whatever else, if you are poor, or you are part of that new meaning of life. The life has meaning no matter what, because you live in that kind of incredible relationship, which at the end is the relationship that exists between the three persons of the Holy Trinity. That's why the Orthodox have been insisting, and still they're insisting, and will insist until the end, on the proper understanding of the Holy Trinity, because that gives us the proper understanding of the relationship between three persons. It's the actual presence of the proper relationship. If we destroy that, if we diminish that, if we change that, then we lose that kind of understanding of relationship and understanding of the proper meaning of life. So, in our modern circumstances, people are looking to find out the meaning of life outside the traditional possible ways, including the Orthodox Church. The experience, the present experience at least, shows us that really there is no meaning of life beyond. If we do not have that proper relationship and understanding, then it's very difficult to define a proper meaning of life. And we saw it in many philosophers, modern and older, many people that they claim one way or another their atheistic background or anything else. But for us Christians, especially Orthodox Christians, it's more a witness of the proper meaning of life. I remember in the history of literature, one of the biggest Russian writers, Leo Tolstoy, wrote a beautiful short story, how much place you need to have a proper meaning of life. And at the end, he was talking about a small piece of land, 2 by 2, enough to become your tomb. Because if you believe that that's the end of the life, that is how much worthy you are. You are not more than that worth. But if whatever we live is a prelude of the life to come, and that the life to come is the life from glory to glory, that is the only true meaning that exists. And somebody, he does not become a sponsor into that kind of reality, but becomes an inquirer through silence of this deeper meaning of life, which is something that is the ideal for the Christian point of view, that we all have to arrive at this new life, which is beyond time and space, which is really living in the kingdom. Yes, into many personal experience has been revealed in front of people that they are in front of us and live as humans as we do, that their life has been transfigured completely into something else. In other words, the transfiguration that we celebrate in the church is not just a theory. It's a practical understanding of the advancement of the spiritual life. And when you see that that kind of reality is not just an ideal, it's not an illusion, but is a reality in front of you, then you get all the courage in the world to try to live in the same way, in the same manner, in the same circumstances, with our own particular means. And that is really a life worth living.